Hello again. I am, and I freely admit this, fascinated by the way that British society seems to be obsessed with the interests of black people while by and large ignoring the concerns of other minorities. Those of African origin are always given special treatment and handled with care. One might even say pampered. Without doubt, they are accorded more sympathy and understanding than any other ethnicity in Britain. We see this with great clarity in the way that unpleasant slang terms for other ethnicities are not treated with anything like the same amount of sensitivity as those relating to Africans and Caribbeans. For instance, I have never in my life used what we must now call the N-word. I never heard it in my family when I was growing up either. I used to hear it quite a bit at one time at work and in the pub when I was younger. Speaking personally, I'm glad it has fallen from use. However, not using a word is one thing, but refusing to allow it even to be printed or spoken is something else again. If I said it out loud now, and YouTube heard about it, I would certainly be banned for a week or two, which strikes me as absurd. If I even read a passage from a book like Brideshead Revisited, To Kill a Mockingbird or Tom Sawyer, and failed to censor the word when it occurred, then that's what would happen. Instant ban. I know this because it's happened to others. In short, classics of English literature by the likes of Mark Twain and Evelyn Waugh are now unacceptable to YouTube, which is pretty grotesque. Of course, it doesn't stop there. Some viewers may have seen that Elvis Costello has asked for radio stations not to play his song Oliver's Army anymore because he's sick of the controversy about just 2 syllables of it, which the BBC bleep out. These are the lines: all it takes is an itchy trigger, one more widow, one less white, Nword. Here is an anti-war and anti-racist song which must now be abandoned because it might cause offence to 3% of the people in this country. There was a time when sexual obscenities were indicated in print by the letter F or C followed by 3 asterisks. I always thought this ridiculous and have for well over 50 years been opposed to any censorship of that kind. Now though, we can print in full any swear word, but must not write out in full the word about which I am talking. Instead, that must be shown by the letter N and a handful of asterisks. What I find quite extraordinary is that it is only black people who are catered to in this fashion. Nobody ever seems to notice racial slurs against anybody else, least of all left-wingers or the BBC, of course. I mentioned Brideshead Revisited above by Evelyn Waugh. The N-word occurs in several of his books, Scoop and Decline and Fall, for example. There was a little awkwardness when the BBC dramatised Decline and Fall a couple of years ago because the book contained several uses of the word. There was some speculation about how this would be handled when it was screened. I have never heard anybody even mention offensive words referring to other minority ethnicities in Waugh's books. There is no taboo around them, and nobody even seems to have noticed them. Here is a book by Evelyn Waugh, which few people read these days, Vile Bodies. I don't know if any viewers have ever read Vile Bodies. It falls somewhere in the canon between Decline and Fall and Put Out More Flags. You might see it as a sequel to Decline and Fall. Let me just read a few lines. A young actress is arguing with a film director called Isaacs about whether or not she gets to ride a horse in a film. He says to her, "You've just got to face it. You've come to cross the fields on foot." "Dirty yid," said Effie Latouche. Let that sink in for a moment. Dirty yid. This is colossally offensive to Jews, and yet YouTube will not trouble themselves about the word. You will see it printed freely in newspapers and hardly anybody cares. Certainly you will not hear it being referred to as the Y word and printed with asterisks. Just on the off chance a member of an ethnic minority might be upset. I'm glad that this is the case, of course, because as I say, I do not like censorship or having my newspapers or books edited in that way, but this is worth thinking about. I could give many other instances of racial slurs which are freely spoken and printed without anybody giving the thing a second thought. Why is that? Why is it that black people alone should be protected in this way from hearing or seeing unpleasant slang words used about them? I can say or write what I please when referring to minorities from Asia or the Middle East. I can use any slang expression or offensive term I want, and it won't raise an eyebrow. Use a word connected purely with people of African heritage, though, and one crosses a line. Why are they a special case?